Good day to you, this is Mr. Schmidt, and today we're going to learn the third step of sentence analysis, which is identifying the subject. For this lesson, you'll need a few things. All of these come from Simple Steps to Sentence Sense for High School by Charlene Tess. Make sure you've gathered your SAM and everything you need for step 3, lesson notes, group, and individual practice. And make sure too that you've watched videos or learned these skills in some other way. You need to know your basic parts of speech, how to identify prepositional phrases, and how to identify verbs and verb phrases, because that comes first. So remember this sentence that we used in step 1. Early one morning, Bartleby the bee flew over the meadow to Madeline's garden. And remember that step 1 is, of course, to identify prepositional phrases, which we put in square brackets. Step 2 is to identify verbs and verb phrases, which we underlined twice, and then we label them either as A for action, L for linking, or H for helping. And then step 3, which is today's lesson, is to identify the subject, and the subject we're going to underline once. Let's do all 3 steps with our model sentence here about Bartleby the bee. So early one morning, Bartleby the bee flew over the meadow to Madeline's garden. You'll remember this is a prepositional phrase, over the meadow. Starts with a preposition, ends with a noun that is the preposition's object. And so, of course, is to Madeline's garden, prepositional phrase with an OP here. Now, right about now, step 3 is when I tell students that it's okay for them to stop labeling every object of preposition as an OP, that I know and they know that whenever there's a prepositional phrase, the last word in the prepositional phrase is the object, so they don't have to label it OP anymore. So if you're in my class, you can stop writing OP every time. So step 2 is to find the verb, and we have an action verb right here, flew. We don't seem to have any linking or helping verbs. And then step 3, find the subject. Now, finding a subject is really simple as long as you remember to ask the right question. And I can't emphasize this enough. You have to ask a question each time you find a subject. The subject is the who or the what in a sentence. So to find the subject, you want to look before the verb and ask the question, who or what verb? And it's very important that you include the verb at the end of the question. If you don't, then you're going to be confused in future steps and you're going to get things wrong. So make sure you're asking this question exactly as I have it here, who or what verb? When we look at our Bartleby sentence, who or what flew? The answer, of course, is Bartleby flew. Now, I want to clear up some confusion right now. Hopefully this won't confuse you in future sentences. There's a difference between what we call a simple subject and a complete subject. And for the purposes of this lesson, it doesn't really matter if you underline the simple subject or the complete subject. The simple subject is just the one main word that does the action of the verb. So, Bartleby flew. But the complete subject is that word along with anything else that comes along with it and modifies it. So Bartleby the bee is the complete subject. I'm going to always identify just the simple subject because that's a part that you have to have. But if you end up underlining other words that come alongside that simple subject and that modify it at this stage in the process, that is okay. There's no problem with it. So again, to find the subject, look before the verb, ask the question who or what verb, who or what flew. The answer, of course, is Bartleby. We underline the subject once, and that's it. So let's look at these 5 sentences, which actually come from the Step 1 worksheets from Charlene Tess's book. So you've seen these before, and I want you to do all 3 steps on these. If you can find them in your packet, that's fine. If you want to just write them down, that's fine too. But I want you to hit pause right now, do all 3 steps, and then come back to check your answers. Okay, you ready? I'm about to put the answers for steps 1 and 2 up on the board. So here they are. There are a few little tricks here, like you might have forgotten that, repeat after me, not is not a verb. This is an adverb interrupter, right? And you might have missed some prepositional phrases. Some of these are kind of hidden. Remember this tricky one, around the dinosaur display, not around the dinosaur. Okay, so now we need to look at each of these sentences and do step 3, which is to find the subject. Now follow my logic carefully. In the first one, who does the dishes once a week? The answer, of course, is everyone does the dishes. Now this one's tricky because if you didn't follow the process, if you didn't bracket off the prepositional phrase first, you might have thought that family is the subject. It's not, because it's not that the whole family does the dishes once a week. It's everyone does the dishes once a week. Now it's important at this point to point out that you're never going to find a subject or a main verb inside of a prepositional phrase. That's why we bracket them off first. We bracket them off first to get them out of the way. And then you look for your subjects and your verbs outside the prepositional phrase. So let's do that same thing in the second one. Who or what flew? In this case, Francis flew. Now you might have been tempted to say that the kite flew. Well, okay, the kite was flying, but that's not what the sentence is about. It's about Francis doing something. Francis flying the kite. So who or what was doing this thing? Francis was doing it. This third one is tricky as well. You might have misidentified the subject as Tracy, as though it was just Tracy walking along the narrow trail. That's incorrect. The subject is class. Who or what walked? The class walked. Again, you could underline Tracy's class, complete subject, or just class as the simple subject, but you have to have class underlined. The fourth one is easy. Who or what wrote? Lynn wrote. And the fifth one is easy too, if you remember the rule that the subject cannot come inside the prepositional phrase. So which word is trying to trick you here? Of course, it's the word guests, right? That looks like the guests were not pleased. That should be the subject, but it's not. It's the word some. Because, of course, we're not saying that all the guests were not pleased. We're saying some were not pleased. So always ask yourself the question, who or what, verb, who were not pleased, some were not pleased, and do not get tricked by these prepositional phrases which sometimes come in between the subject and the verb. When that happens, you're going to be tempted to identify an OP as a subject, and it won't be the subject. OP is never going to be the subject. So again, our procedure, the subject is the who or the what, so we ask who or what verb, and it's very important that you include the verb in the end of the question. Now, for the most part, all of our subjects are going to be before the verb, but there are a few exceptions to this, and I need to go over these exceptions with you before we go on to practice. Check out these special cases. First one, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Okay, fine. But when we ask the question who or what lived, the answer is hobbit. Hobbit comes after the verb in this sentence. How does that work? Why is that true? Similar thing happens in this sentence. Here's the package you ordered. Okay, well, there's no prepositional phrase. We got a linking verb here, is. But who or what is? Who or what is? We can't say here is. Here doesn't work as a subject because it's not even a noun. It can't be the thing that is. What's the thing that is? The package. Again, it comes after the verb. Clean your room. No prepositional phrase, action verb. Who or what clean? Well, there's not even a subject in the sentence for that. It doesn't even answer the question. And then, of course, this lovely sentence from the Gospel of John, in my Father's house are many mansions. In my Father's house are. Well, here we've got a prepositional phrase before the verb, but we don't have any other words. And remember, there can't be a subject inside the prepositional phrase. So in this sentence, the word mansions is actually the subject. So we have to figure out sentences like this where it gets weird, where the subject is in a place that we don't expect it. And there are 4 specific cases where that is true. Here they are. Number 1, the subject will be in a strange place if the sentence begins with here or there. Here and there are adverbs. They're not the subject of the sentence. So if the sentence begins with here or there, the subject will, if the sentence begins with here or there, the subject is often going to be after the verb. So again, here is the package you ordered. And that's the subject. The next case, if the sentence begins with a prepositional phrase, the subject may come after the verb. In my Father's house are. What are in my Father's house? The mansions are. In a hole in the ground. This one kind of puts the two together. It starts with prepositional phrases and it has a here or there before the verb. There lived, action. Who or what lived? The hobbit lived. The third special case. In English, interrogative sentences, these are questions, are really weird. And in a question, the subject often comes after the verb or even in between verbs. Like look at this sentence. Did you clean your room yet? Okay, so we've got verb, did clean, helping action. And where's the subject? Who did clean the room? You. Strange, in between the two verbs, it splits the verb phrase in half. And then here's one that begins with an adverb, where, just kind of like a sentence beginning with here or there. So we've got where is the package I ordered, and you've got a linking verb here, and the subject of that linking verb is of course the package. So look out, whenever you see a question mark at the end of a sentence, your subject is going to be in a strange place. And the fourth and final special case is an imperative sentence. An imperative sentence, of course, is a request or a command. And the subject of that sentence is always, always, always an implied you. And in English, we don't say the you. We just say, clean your room today, please. But who are we talking to? We're talking to some imagined person, right? This you. So if your mother says it to you, she might say, hey, you, clean your room today, please. She doesn't actually say that, but that's what she means, right? So that you is implied. So we have no prepositional phrases, step 1. Step 2, the verb, clean, action. Who is supposed to clean the room today? You are. That's step 3, the subject. Don't buy the expensive tuna. All right, no prepositional phrases. I've got a verb phrase, do buy. Notice I'm not underlining the N apostrophe T because that means not, and not is not a verb. Helping, action. And who should not buy the expensive tuna? You should not buy the expensive tuna. So whenever you see this kind of sentence, this imperative sentence, you're going to have to write the word you in front of it and then underline it as the implied subject. Now, I can't emphasize this enough. It is important for you to memorize all 4 of these special cases before you move on. And if you can't remember them, if you haven't memorized them yet, you need to hit pause. You need to make yourself some flashcards or a list, and you need to memorize them. Sentences beginning with adverbs like here and there, sentences that begin with prepositional phrases, interrogative sentences, that's questions, and imperative sentences, that's commands and requests. In all 4 of these cases, the subject is going to be strange. It will not be right before the verb. It won't be easy to find. So unless you've memorized these and become really familiar with them, you are not ready to move on. Okay, so let's look at some group practice. This should be in your packet. This is just from the Charlene Tests worksheet. Group practice for step 3. What I want you to do is do these first 6, hit pause and do the first 6, and then come back and check your answers. Okay, I'm about to show you the answers. Are you ready? Okay, so here they are. There are 3 kind of tricky ones here. The first one, of course, is tricky because the subject comes after the verb. The third one because of the implied you. And then I thought number 4 is kind of tricky because became is really a linking verb here, but a lot of people identify it as an action verb. And to tell you the truth, that's something that I wouldn't probably count off on because it kind of works both ways. And then, of course, number 5, we've got this interrogative sentence with the subject bifurcating the verb phrase. So check your answers, figure out where you went wrong, and then once you know and understand all 6 of these, then you're ready to move on to the next 7. So do numbers 7 through 13 now. Okay, I'm about to show you the answers to 7 through 13. Are you ready? Okay, here they are. Look out for the places where the subject comes after the verb. Look out for these understood yous in these imperative sentences. And of course we have a do not leave here. Not is not a verb, so we've got an adverb interrupter. Check all of your answers against mine. If you understand, then move on and do the last 7, numbers 14 through 20. If not, you might want to ask somebody why you got it wrong. Hit pause now and do 14 through 20. So here are those answers. A few tricks, like a Mando and I, compound subject. Another understood you here. Check your answers, make sure you did everything right, and if you did, if you understand this and you're getting them consistently correct, then it is time for you to prove that you know it and do some independent practice. So we're not only identifying prepositional phrases now, but we're also doing step 2, verbs and verb phrases, and we're also doing step 3, subject. So what you want to do, if you're ready, is go complete the independent practice, which is the next worksheet in the test book. Ask your teacher to check your work. And then, if you want an extra challenge, I want you to open up a book or magazine or some piece of really good writing that you admire and see how many different subject placements you can find, like a sentence with the subject at the end or with phrases between the subject and verb. The thing is, the more patterns you can recognize and the more patterns you can actually use in your writing, the more interesting your writing is going to be. Sentence variety is one of the hardest and most important tasks that any writer can master. And one of the most important ways of creating sentence variety is putting subjects in different places in sentences. So you need to start being attentive to that in your reading and then in your writing. Once again, this has been Mr. Schmidt teaching you the third step of sentence analysis, which is how to identify the subject. And I want to remind you with the immortal words of Alexander Pope to keep studying, because a little learning is a dangerous thing. Drink deep, or taste not the Pierian spring. There shallow draughts intoxicate the brain, and drinking largely sobers us again.